Hello and welcome to episode 239 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is July 15th, 2024. And for a summer day, I'm dressed fairly warmly. It's not that cold outside. It's not that warm inside, so I can still wear these things, but I may take one or both of them off during the podcast. We'll see. So I'm wearing this cowl or loop, mainly because it goes nicely with the cardigan. It has a lot of colors in there, but the purple fits really nicely with the cardigan, and then some yellow and some pink and some green. It's a sock yarn by Wollerödel that I bought back when I still worked there, and I bought quite a lot of it, and the plan was always to knit a cardigan or pullover to go with this cowl. Not quite sure I'll ever do that, but that was the plan, and we'll see whether I will ever do that. The cowl itself is a Mobius cowl, so I did a Mobius cast on in the middle of this thing, and then I knit this wavy pattern that I also used for arm warmers, and I did a tutorial video, but I'm not quite sure whether that exists in English or whether I just did it in German. I forgot to check. But I used the same pattern for this cowl, and because it's a Mobius, on the one side you see the twisted stitches, but I only twisted the knit stitches, not the purl stitches. So on the other side, the stitches are not twisted. So knitting the Mobius, I'm knitting upwards and downwards at the same time, but one half shows the knit side and the other side shows the purl side. So that's really interesting. And all you do is you knit this amount of rows, but then you have double the height because of the construction of a Mobius. And then if I fold it down, you can see the twisted stitches from both halves. So that's basically the way I like to wear it. But you always also have this sort of, it's always pulled in on itself. I don't know how to explain it. I hope you know what a Mobius is. Otherwise, you can Google it and find out about it. And it's a lot of fun to knit a Mobius something. I should do that again at some point. Anyway, that's a cowl. And that, of course, is my cardigan. It's the alpaca brushed alpaca cardigan that I've been knitting the last couple of weeks. And I brought the book again. It's called Schwedische Strickjacken für jede Jahreszeit by Maja Carlson. I'm pretty sure, I think the English version was planned, and I linked to the Amazon page where you could already see the book, and maybe it's available now. I forgot to check again. So yeah, but it's a beautiful book with lots and lots of cardigans, and this is one of the easiest cardigans in the book. And the one in the book looks like this. So there are two different ones, fairly simple. They use a bulky alpaca that has the same gauge as two strands of the brushed alpaca held together by Hansa Farm. Yeah, and if you look at this picture, you can see that the back is fairly short. So it sort of depends on how you wear the jacket. I've seen that with some of my customers who are also knitting the cardigan, that if you pull it up here, the back is really short and hangs up like this. If you like that, it's no problem, but I always try and get the shoulder seam right up onto the shoulder. Then it's not that short, and then the front and the backs sort of have the same length, and I'm really happy with it. So it sort of mainly looks the same as it looked last time. I don't think that washing it changed a lot. Maybe it's a little less fluffy, but it's still extremely soft. It's still very light. Yeah, and it's very nice to wear. I think it keeps warm, but it doesn't keep me too hot. So even though it's fairly warm in here, I don't feel too hot wearing it at the moment. If I get one of my hot flashes, it might change and I might take it off. But right now I'm really happy wearing it. As I said, the sleeve looks a bit weird if you hold your arms like that, which I usually don't do. And if I have my arm like this, it doesn't really show. Because it's so light, it doesn't seem to be dropping off my shoulders. Yeah, as I said, it doesn't have a closure. It's just an open cardigan like that. You could put a needle in here, or you could even put a button if you wanted to. Yeah, but I'm really happy with the way it looks and it feels and it wears, and I'm really happy. So I'll put this on again. Might take it off again at some point. We'll see. Yeah, so I'm trying to fold it in such a way that both layers are visible. It's always a bit tricky with the Mobius. Okay, then on to finished objects. I only have one finished object, but I have 3 new cast-ons. I know it's not what I planned for, but it's what sometimes happens. I finished my Bigfoot socks. So I only have one giant sock blocker, size 48, 49. So I used one size 42, 43. These are usually, oh, I should have 44 and 45. I don't know where they are. Anyway, that's the one I use. So this is a smaller one, but I just wanted to show you that the socks are finished. As usual, I did not take care to have the stripes at the same height. The heels look different. Funnily enough, when I did knit the second toe, I didn't want to reuse the same yarn that I used for the first toe, and I just pulled at the yarn the way it was, and I ended up having almost 2 identical toes, which is really funny. It's nothing I planned for. I think it's really funny that the sock is almost as long as my whole arm, which is quite funny. Anyway, these are the Bigfoot socks. I used one ball of MKal subscription yarn. So it's a 4-ply sock yarn, but in the subscription colorway. I'm not sure that you will be able to get it later on. For the heel and toes, I used a 6-ply sock yarn by MKal in a different colorway, but I think they go together really nicely. And yeah, now my friend can pick them up and give them to her husband. And he has a new pair of socks that he won't need right now because it's still really warm. Most people won't wear woolen socks at the moment, I think. But I'm still happy to have them finished, and as soon as it gets cold, he can wear them. Now, on to works in progress. And there I start with the socks as usual. And the oldest sock I have on the needle is the 3 whirls socks that I knit as 2 whirls. And I added several rounds, so the trees grew a bit. Not a big difference. I found my stopper thing, so I won't lose my stitches. And from last week, that would have been the only sock that was on my needle, and I said I wanted to cast on a new pair, or maybe 2, or maybe 3. So yeah, I actually cast on 3 new socks. And one of the socks is that was the first one that I cast on, is the new Surprise Sockalong by Stephen West. So last year he did his first mystery knit along for socks, and he called it Surprise Sockalong. And I took part in that last year. And then my friend really wanted to do it again this year. And she's always a bit worried that she won't understand the pattern. So she always is happy for me to knit along. So I promised I would knit along the Color Opportunity socks with her. And the first clue dropped last week. And I had several colors picked out to knit for the socks. And then I saw the pattern. And the way it very often happens, I see the pattern and I change my plans. And I started picking out new colors, and my sister was here. And I'm not knitting socks for myself this year, so I knew I would either knit for a friend or for my cousin or for my sister. And when I pulled up this leftover bit of yarn, this is a comedy colorway by MKal, and she knit something for herself out of this colorway, and she loves it. And her eyes started shining, and I said, okay, I can knit the socks for you. So she got to choose the 3 contrast colorways. So you can either use a solid color for the main color and then use a colorful yarn for the contrast colors, or you can have a main color and 3 different contrast colors. So she decided she wanted this as her main color, and then I've got to bring the yarn, so I'll just show it on the sock. So these are her contrast colors. It's this light blue, it's this light gray, and it's this middle gray. I realized that on the photos on the Ravelry page, this looks almost beige or light brown, but it actually is a gray. It's a kind of gray. And this is the beginning of the surprise Sockalong. So it's a typical Stephen West, so there's a lot going on. And the first interesting fact is that the leg of the sock is knit sideways. So you start with the provisional cast on, then you knit a few rounds in this wave pattern, then you knit several rows in this zigzag pattern, and then you go back to the wavy pattern, but you do some contrast color welts. And now I'm supposed to knit this pattern again, and then the 2 ends are knit together with an I-cord, and this forms the leg of the sock. So this is what it looks like. And the contrast colors are not very contrasting, but it's the way my sister loves it. And as they are for her, this is fine. And I will try and knit this section today. I think the next clue drops tomorrow, so I should try and be ready for the next clue. Now, ordinarily, I would show you the sock next week, but there won't be a proper episode next week because I'll be busy. And then also the week after, my husband is away from home, so he can't make a video. He can't help me put up the video. So there won't be a proper episode for 2 weeks. And then in 3 weeks' time, the sock will probably almost finished, but that's the way it goes. And next week, there will be a special video. And I'll explain about that in a minute. And then in 2 weeks' time, there will be no video. And then in 3 weeks' time, there'll be the next proper episode. Okay, now the next sock that I cast on is from this new colorway by MKal, only it's not a new colorway. So MKal, every year they bring out 8 new colorways under the rainforest heading. And each of those colorways is inspired by an animal. And from each ball of yarn that is sold, they donate to keep the rainforest intact. And this year is the 20-year anniversary of this idea of trying to help the rainforest. And instead of coming out with 8 new colors for this year, they chose 16 of the old colorways. So there were 9 years with 8 colorways each. So there's lots and lots of colors to choose from. They picked out 16 colorways to reintroduce this year. And the special video next week, I will show you all the 16 different colorways. But for this video, I can show you this one because I started a sock, just a very plain vanilla sock for one of my nephews. And that's that one. And then another colorway from this year's Rainforest series is this one, this beautiful color. And I also started a sock in that colorway. And that's a sock that I've been planning for a long time. I've decided on a lot of different colors since the pattern came out. And then now, because the new colors were there, I decided, very spontaneously decided to use that one. And that is the Bellflower pattern, Bellflower socks. And that was a Sock Madness bonus pattern this year. So I don't think I've knit any of the bonus patterns yet. There's one bonus pattern that I definitely want to knit, but I'd be interested in knitting all of them at some point. But the Bellflower was the one that I wanted to start first. And that starts at the toe, but it didn't start here, but it started here. So you cast on stitches and then you knit like a heel on half the stitches. And when you finish that, you start knitting in the round, and then that's where the lace pattern starts. I've only just started the lace pattern. I know that the lace pattern will be a little lost with all the stripes happening in this yarn, but I really wanted to use one more colorway from this series, and I also wanted to knit this pattern, so I thought it's a good idea. The interesting thing is that because the toe is not knit in the round, you have a different color on the bottom than on the top, which is quite funny. And as I said, not much of the lace pattern to be seen yet, but yeah, should be interesting to see how that develops. Yeah, so that's 4 pairs of socks that I'm knitting at the moment, 3 of them new cast-ons. Quite crazy, but that's the way things happen sometimes. Now on to the pattern battle that I'm knitting out of this Abo yarn, this subscription colorway. And I'm knitting this Cowl by Tellybean Knits, I think. It's the slippery cowl, and I actually managed to finish this middle section. So I knit all the rows that I needed. I knit the ribbing, I cast off, and then I picked up stitches from this side and started knitting the second half, not the second half, the second part of the cowl, because this is going to be the second part. And then on this side, I'll knit the third part. And then once I knit them together, the cowl will be finished. So I'll have some ribbing at the bottom and at the top of the cowl, and in between it's the same slip stitch pattern that I did in the middle, only that it runs sideways, and there are some decreases so that the shape keeps developing, the shape that's been started in the middle, so it will go up there but it stays straight up here. So it's a very interesting instruction. The stripes come out a little differently because I have more stitches here than I had here, and I think by the end of this part I'll have fewer stitches than I had here, so the stripes keep changing a little bit, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, but I'm very happy with how that comes along. That's the cowl. Then we come to the pullovers, or the garments. Yeah, it's 2 pullovers and a dress, and I continued knitting on the Lanatus pullover. Oops. I was feeling for the hanger, but there's no hanger in at the moment. So this is the yoke and then the front and back that I've done so far, and I continued knitting on the sleeve. So last week the sleeve and the front and back had the same length, and I added 3 patterns using my fantastic mini circular needle. Really happy how this is coming along. Still enjoying the knitting so much. Certainly the colors come out differently with the fewer stitches than they did with the many stitches, but I really love seeing how that comes out. And now after this pattern, let me see. Yeah, this is this pattern. So now I'm going to knit this pattern. I'm still not quite sure whether the sleeve is going to be long enough then, but maybe I'll just knit a very long ribbing. But I just love to finish with that pattern because that's the one that I started with. No idea how this is going to happen with the front and back, because that probably won't be as long as the sleeve. I don't know yet. We'll see when I get there. But first I need to finish the first sleeve, then I'll knit the second sleeve, and then I can think about the front and back. So still some time to go. Then the Mamaki dress, a pattern by Nicolor. I added some rounds to the front and back. Not a big difference, still looks mostly the same, the way it looked last week. Still enjoying my yarn that I put together myself at the Wollfabrik in Hamburg. Yeah, I'm dreaming of getting the front and back to the length of the sleeves, and then if I have enough yarn, even longer than that. We'll see about that. And then the third garment, or the second pullover that I'm knitting at the moment, is the Vena Hop Pullover, which is another pattern by Nicolor. I'm a big fan of Nicolor's patterns, and I'm using this fingering weight Pure Alpaka by Hansa Farm. And last week when I showed it to you, I'd only started the back of the pullover, and I don't know how much I had last week, but I did the first bit in stockinette stitch, And then the second bit I knit a seat stitch pattern, which is in the book that I showed you last week. By the way, somebody asked me if you could use the book if you didn't read German. And I'm pretty confident you can, because every pattern has a chart going with it, and the chart only exists of knits and purls. So it's not really difficult. You might have a bit of a difficulty to knit the patterns that are at the end of the book, but I think with Google Translate, it shouldn't be too difficult to do that. But all the patterns are just knits and purls, and you have a chart for all of the patterns, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then after the seat stitch stripe, I did another stockinette stripe, and then my back was big enough, so I had to reach a certain amount of centimeters, and then I cast on stitches for the front, and now I'm knitting in the round. So now I'm knitting in the round. I have twice as many stitch markers than I had last week, and I put in my round counter. So this is like a chain, and it has 10 of these rings, and every time I come to the end or beginning of the round, I'll move the marker to the next ring, and then when I get to 10, I know that one of these sections is finished. For this section, I picked a pattern from Bernd Kessler's book and slightly changed it then. It was a 5-stitch pattern, and a 4-stitch pattern just fit better with my number of stitches at that moment. The next time things will look different again. And with this pattern, there's a pattern every other round. So every other round is just knit stitches, and the rounds in between have purls in between, and then I'll do another stockinette stripe, and so on and so forth. Really enjoy knitting this, and can't wait to see this grow. I think this, like this, you can tell a difference between the seat stitch and the other pattern. Yeah, really excited to see how the pattern looks once I finished all the rows that I want to do with this. So that's that. I did not knit on the skirt. I'm sure now with 3 weeks to go until the next proper episode, I'll make sure to knit on the skirt. And I also did not knit on the Abloom mystery knit along. I really do want to get a move on with that as well. We'll see how that works. But I kept knitting on the Goff's Place mystery knit along. I did get the next clue. Very, very exciting, but I did not manage to start it. So I'll show you, just in case you didn't want to see. Look away now. Very quickly, this is clue 1, and this is clue 2, and this is the part that I showed you last week. And by the way, this purple should be the same purple as here, because this is also a Hansa Farm yarn. And I started knitting the middle bit, but this is taking forever. Even though it's just one color, and even though it's just garter stitch, I have to knit so many stitches and so many rows, because every row I eat up 1 stitch on this side, and then the next row I eat up 1 stitch on that side, and it just seems to take forever. So this is what I've managed so far, but it's not even half of what I need to do to fill this hole. So I found a smaller needle to do this. We had to go down with the needle size. I'm guessing to make sure this fits, even though we had like chevrons here and it's straight here, something like that. But this is still a lot to go. I will try and knit on that as quickly as possible. I know I have a whole month to do clue 3, and just to let you know, clue 3 is going to start on this edge, and it will get a bit of a form like this. This is all I'm saying today. As soon as I've started knitting it, it'll be a lot more obvious. Again, it will take all 5 colors. She promised from the beginning that every clue would use all the colors. I really like the way clue 3 looks, and I can't wait to get started, but I have to finish clue 2 first. So lots and lots of work to be put in. That's the shawl, and then I'm already at my knit-alongs. I'm fairly quick today, but that's okay. So the knit-along is the where we knit haramaki or reversible hats. I did not knit a whole lot on this because when I needed some mindless knitting, I usually try to knit on the shawl with the garter stitch in the middle. But it's not a small portable project, so I did carry this around a little bit, and I added maybe 1 or 2 centimeters to the second half of the hat. This is where I started with the new yarn and folding this over. Well, I was thinking I maybe had half of the new color, but I don't think I have. So, well, but I'm not in a hurry. I'm not needing a reversible double layer hat at the moment, and I really enjoy knitting on this, so this can take as long as it wants, as long as I do keep knitting on it. And that brings me to the crochet along that I'm doing with the spiral granny squares, and there I am crocheting a summer top for myself. So this I really want to get done a little quicker. I'd hoped to crochet a whole ball of yarn, but I didn't. But I did at least half the ball of yarn. So my second square grew. The first square, after crocheting 3 balls of yarn, I decided was big enough. So with this one, I have to finish the second one, then crochet most of the third one, and then I can crochet the 2 squares together. And that will be it. I probably won't do any more finishing than just crocheting the 2 squares together and then wear it as a summer top. And being a summer top, I want it done as quickly as possible, as we already are in summer. And I would love to be wearing this summer. That's the Catania Color by Schachenmeier. So the colors are all in the ball of yarn. I'm not changing colors, and that's why it makes sense to crochet spirals, so I don't have to bother about end of the round and beginning of the round. I can just keep crocheting from one corner to the other and not pay attention to anything else. Yeah, that was everything. All the projects I cast on last week, everything I knit and crocheted on. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in 3 weeks' time in the next one. Bye!